everybody, welcome back. Today I'm going to talk about things that I do in England that this American expat just loves. Shopping on High Street. We have main streets in America, but they're definitely not the same. Usually there's a road that runs through the middle of them, and there's a few shopping malls, and of course, some restaurants and some entertainment things and gas stations and things like that. But you usually have to drive around to them and park to them, and then you're on your way. And also, they're not always clustered in the center of town. Sometimes they're spread out throughout town, depending on how old the town is and how much, where the town borders are and everything. Here in England, High Street is incredible. In my opinion, it's one of the most precious things about England, and I love it. I love the fact that you can't really drive in all the areas of high streets in the towns in England. Most of them are only accessible by one road or through walking, and I think that's so much fun. And I actually really enjoy going into town, walking along High Street, even if I'm not really buying anything, just seeing the shops and knowing that, like, for hundreds of years people have walked the same streets and have looked at the same buildings. Unfortunately, here in England, a lot of the high streets, at least in this area, are becoming a bit desolate and being kind of driven out. The businesses are being driven out by, big box stores on the outskirts of town and malls and things like that. And I think that's so bad. I think that's such a devastating mark against England, because the high street is so unique and so special, and I really do think it should be preserved. And I hope that at some point the English government believes that and the public gets behind that and starts putting some money into it, because to me, even though I'm a foreigner, I see it. I think it's something that's just extremely precious and should be preserved here in England, and I love going high street. Pub lunches. This is something that I experienced the very first time I came here in England, and it's fantastic. Just the atmosphere in pubs in general is so different than anything else I've experienced in America, but it's just so much fun. And again, there's so much history involved in all the pubs, and it's so unique. And the experience of having a pub lunch, especially during a weekday when there's a workforce coming in at lunch and then they just leave at the end of the hour or the end of the 2-hour break, and all of a sudden the pub is empty. And you can just feel the flow, the energy that comes in and all that kind of stuff, and just seeing all the different types of people from the area and coming together in one spot. That's really the essence of what pubs are here in England. I'm always going to be up for a pub lunch no matter what is happening around me. West End shows. Now, I really, really enjoy plays and musicals, and I loved going to Broadway when I lived in America. We lived in New Jersey, so New York was just an hour train ride away, and it was really accessible for us. And I used to do it a lot, but it was so expensive. The train itself was very expensive. Getting to the train, because you don't have a lot of access to public transport, so I would have to get a ride, or we'd have to pay for parking at the actual train station and figure all of that out. And then once you get into New York, the tickets are really, really expensive, and even for not so great seats, and it's just a very involved, expensive experience. And even though I loved it and I did it as often as I could, I never got to do it nearly as often as I really wanted to. Here, the West End is incredible. I mean, not just in the fact that it's the West End, which for anyone who likes any kind of theater is a huge deal, but all of the theaters are old and have been here forever, and that in itself is so much fun to just see and experience and be a part of. But also, there's so much variety, and it's really relatively inexpensive. It's about half the price for the train ticket to get into London as it was for us to get into New York, same distance. Also, the tickets are like a third of the price. You just don't overprice your tickets here. They're just much more accessible and available, and there's always deals going on. I've seen so many more shows here in the West End since I've lived here in England for the last 2 years than I ever did in my entire time living in America. And it is definitely something that keeps me extremely excited about being here. Exploring castles and abbeys and other ruins. So I'm always going to be up for going on a trip and, seeing a new abbey or seeing a castle that I haven't seen yet, or even when I have, to be honest. And even if they're in ruins or they're not a working castle or they're not a working abbey, I just find it really, really fascinating that it's so ingrained in your culture here. Obviously, it has to do with the age of your country versus the age of America, but the preservation of it and just the nostalgia of it. And there's so many of them, and there's so many different stories, and there's so much history tied to each one. It's so much fun for me. So much fun for me. And I hope that that excitement never dies, because I would really love to see as many of them as possible, if not all of them. Maybe advantageous, but I will try. Thrifting. So thrifting in America is not really something that a lot of people do, because it's considered to be what like poor people do. And I'm gonna be completely honest, we've been in financial situations where I've needed to thrift. I never had any shame in it. And I remember when my child was little, I would go to the thrift store on purpose when we needed something specific, especially if it was like a dress-up clothes or it's like a one-time thing that the child was going to wear when they were really little, because what's the point in spending a lot of money on something they're going to wear once? So I'm not going to lie, I've done that tons of times in America, and I'm not ashamed of it. But the thrifting here in England is different. It's more of like antique shopping, but all the time, and even for clothes. And I've even found that the younger generation is kind of into it and kind of enjoys it as well, which is really, really just opposite of what I'm used to. But I actually love it because I came from modest means growing up. I am a very frugal person. I'm always looking for a bargain. So for me, thrifting is so much fun. And I really enjoy the fact that it is part of the mainstream culture here. And I'll do it any chance I get. Going to the doctor. It's not that I love going to the doctor, because of course you should go to the doctor. It's not usually for a good reason. But I love that I can go to the doctor without having the stress of, am I going to be able to afford the treatment? Is this going to cost a lot of money? If it's an emergency, do I drive, or do I get someone to drive me, or do I call the ambulance because the ambulance costs so much money? Just being able to just go to the doctor and just have that as a stress-free experience in my life is humongous. And also to not really have to worry about having insurance, or what kind of insurance, or what the insurance covers, and this and that. I have had some experience with private insurance, and it seems like at the small experiences I've had that it's similar to American insurance. I have been lucky to be exposed to that a little bit, but to be honest, I just prefer the NHS at this point in my life. Of course, I don't have anything major going on, and I don't have any long-term illnesses or chronic illnesses that I have to worry about. So for me to just be able to get up and go to the doctor when I need to, or someone in my family that I care about has that access as well, and isn't hindered by cost or stress in any way, or having to jump through hoops in any way, is just a huge, huge plus for me. So it's not necessarily something I love, but it's something that I very, very much appreciate. Not having to drive. I talk about this a lot. This is something that is one of my favorite things about living here in England, is that I don't have to drive. The public transit system is fantastic compared to what I'm used to anyway, and it's so easily accessible. Now, I do live in town, and that of course helps. But even when I lived in a village, there was still a bus and a train that got us to town when we needed it. Driving here for me is extremely intimidating for a lot of reasons. But I just love the fact that I don't have to, and there's no pressure on it, and I can still get everywhere that I need to go without driving. I have a great love for walking in general, and the only reason I didn't walk as much in America is because I just didn't have the ability to. You could walk around the neighborhood, and of course when we had a dog and I took the dog for a walk, but to be able to just walk to town or walk to work, that's a novelty in America. And so I don't know if it's just that it's still novel for me, and that's why I enjoy it so much, but it's not really wearing off. It hasn't worn off at all. If anything, I actually get more excited. I have a really long walk from the train station to my job, but I really embrace it and enjoy it. And a lot of people are like, what? Why? And it's just because they're used to just getting in their car and going and getting where they have to go. For them, it's easier. But for me, I'd much prefer walking if I can. And if I can't, then I always try to seek out public transit first, before I even consider driving or asking for a ride. And that is something I do absolutely love about living here. This one's kind of quirky and a little bit surprising to me, but hearing about the royal family, obviously the royal family news and gossip is transatlantic. You can get it anywhere. Everyone in America knows the royal family, and a lot of people follow it and know the ins and outs and the tidbits and even the, gossip about people's relationships and personal stuff. And even when we lived in England, we watched, the royal weddings, and we watched the Queen's funeral. Those were always really important moments for us, obviously because of our mixed family. And there was no shortage of hearing about what was going on with the royal family in America, trust me. But it's kind of fun for me hearing about it here because I've never lived under a monarch before. And because of the history between the United States and England, obviously the monarch is considered to be a really, really bad thing in America. It's kind of interesting to me, and it's kind of fun in some ways because we just don't have anything like that in America. We don't have actual royalty, and the pomp and circumstance around certain events, in my opinion, could be a little bit overblown, and I can totally understand some people's perspective that it's kind of a waste of money. But when you're watching some of these ceremonies and you're seeing some of these images and you think about the fact that these are the same exact ceremonies, procedures, and customs that have been happening for thousands of years here, that's kind of cool. Not kind of, that's really cool. I know I just sounded really American there, but I don't care. It is really cool. But there's just a lot of respect that comes with the royal family, and I feel like our politicians don't get any respect in America for most of the time good reason. But there's no level of just respect for the position really in America either, and there's no kind of overseer in America, which is part of America's build, and it was purposely done that way. So that there wasn't like a supreme ruler. And I know that this is a constitutional monarch, and the king doesn't just rule over everybody and has an iron fist like they did, Henry VIII times and things like that. But it is a very, very unique thing, and there's not a lot of monarchs left in the world. The fact that the British monarch has survived for so long and is still revered and respected in the ways that it is in today's world, I think is really amazing. And it's something that I actually feel a little bit of pride in as I'm living here in England, which is really strange because I didn't think that was going to affect me at all. But I am interested in what's happening with the royal family. Not the gossip stuff, I don't really care about that much. To what's happening, and as far as in the state and how they're handling things, and how the monarch works with the parliamentary government to get things done, or how they have to work together to run the country or to make decisions. I think that's a really, really cool kind of hybrid situation, and I'm really looking forward to learning more about it and just seeing how it works as I live here longer and as the events of the world unfold around us. So I think that, I do enjoy hearing about the royals a little bit more than I thought I would. All right, guys, those are the things that I do in England that I absolutely love. If I'm missing something or you think I'm crazy, just let me know in the comments below. I always enjoy your feedback. Until then, thanks for listening. I appreciate it. You guys stay safe, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.